I still remember the smell of sawdust and hot concrete the day I met her. It was early September, still sweating season in the valley, and I was doing a drop-off run for the Student Center construction project. Third year in my construction management program, part-time hauling lumber and drywall for a subcontractor that paid crap but kept me debt-free. My boots were dusty, shirt soaked, and I was 5 minutes late for my next run when I saw her. Melissa. She was standing under a shaded awning outside the Women's Studies building, talking to another girl who looked like she belonged on a Vogue cover shoot. Melissa outshined her. Brunette, tan legs crossed under a navy sundress, sunglasses perched on her head, animated hands painting stories in the air like she owned the sidewalk. She caught me watching, just a glance, and gave me a look that wasn't dismissive. It was amusing, curious. Most girls like her wouldn't have looked twice at a guy like me. I was driving a beat-up Ford with a cracked windshield, hands calloused from hauling rebar and treated timber. I didn't quote philosophers or sip overpriced coffee. I brewed Folgers in a thermos that had seen better days. I wasn't part of their world, but she walked up to me anyway. "Are you working at the new center?" she asked, motioning to my loaded truck. "Yeah, just finished the HVAC drop. Next up, drywall and headaches." I wiped my brow. "Are you a student here?" She smiled, slow and deliberate, like she was deciding whether I was worth the time. "Senior. Double major, women's studies and business. Keeps me busy." "Sounds intense." She shrugged. "Only if you care about the future." Then, she asked for my name. No one's ever done that before. Not girls like her. Not with that much eye contact. I told her. "Jake." "Melissa." And just like that, I was hooked. She asked about my work. Most people tune out when I talk about blueprints and city permits. She didn't, or at least pretended not to. She said it was refreshing to meet someone who built things instead of just tweeting about impact. I didn't know what that meant, but I liked hearing her laugh. And that laugh, man, it was real. Didn't sound like a performance. Our first date happened a week later. I picked her up in that rusty Ford, cleaned out the fast food wrappers, even wiped down the dash. Took her to this family-owned Italian joint near campus. Plastic tablecloths, candles in a jar, and a cook who yelled when you asked for substitutions. I loved the place. She looked around, blinked, and said, "Quaint," then launched into a story about this rooftop lounge downtown where she met someone from NPR and got invited to a tech mixer. But she didn't complain about the pasta. She sipped her red wine and asked questions like she really wanted to know me, like she wasn't just slumming it for the night. Looking back, the red flags were there. I just ignored them. She said things like, "I don't believe in gender roles, but if I ever got married, my husband would never control my career." I agreed because why argue on a first date? Or when I told her I worked weekends, she said, "That's admirable. I could never date someone who just works all the time though." Still, I chalked it up to her being passionate, smart, different. We started seeing each other more. I'd bring her coffee between classes. She'd drop by the job site with smoothies and a tight hug. My buddies gave me crap, said I was being played, but I didn't care. She was beautiful, confidence, and somehow she made me feel like I mattered. She talked about changing the world, breaking barriers, launching her own business by the time she was 30. Said she wanted a partner who believed in her vision. I told her I did, and maybe back then I really did. I'd built my life around hard work and loyalty. She made me believe I could have something more, that I could be more than just another guy in boots and a safety vest. With her on my arm, maybe I wasn't just Jake the Builder. I was someone worth noticing. But the thing about building something, you can't just admire the blueprint. You've got to make damn sure the foundation isn't cracked. And Melissa, she was already laying down hers in a world I barely understood. I married Melissa 2 years after that first encounter. She graduated with honors, posted it all over her Instagram, and gave a speech at her department banquet. I wore a suit I bought secondhand and clapped like hell when they called her name. We didn't waste time. She said she didn't want a traditional wedding, too patriarchal. But we still ended up with a 5-figure ceremony at a vineyard her friends recommended. I didn't love the expense, but she looked damn near perfect in that white dress. And for a while, that was enough. Our first apartment was in a newer complex out by the edge of town. Open floor plan, granite counters, big windows she loved to pose in front of. I remember carrying our furniture up the stairs myself while she ordered throw pillows online. She said she couldn't be around dust, some allergy thing. I didn't argue, just kept hauling. Back then, I thought that was love. She got accepted into a graduate program, dual MBA in gender studies, and I picked up more hours to help cover the costs. She said it would elevate us into the kind of power couple she always dreamed of. I believed her. I was proud of her, even if I couldn't always keep up with what she was reading or talking about. She'd quote authors I'd never heard of and go off about toxic structures and economic liberation. I didn't get it, but I nodded, smiled, and listened. What mattered to me was that I was building something solid, providing, supporting. While she was in class or studying, I worked days on site and did night shifts at the supply yard when I could. I'd get home around midnight, hands raw from hauling boards or mixing concrete, and find her watching documentaries or scrolling on her laptop in silk pajamas. She'd give me a tired smile, maybe ask if I picked up the oat milk she wanted, then go back to whatever TED Talk she was half watching. Once, I surprised her with dinner and flowers. She glanced at the lilies, said she was allergic, then asked why I didn't think to get peonies. I scraped the food into the trash when she wasn't looking. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing. You don't wake up one morning and realize you're married to a stranger. It's gradual, like slow rot behind a painted wall. She stopped asking how work was, stopped being interested in the things I cared about. If I talked about a tough job or a promotion, she'd nod and change the subject. But if a classmate got published or landed an internship at a nonprofit, she'd light up like a Christmas tree. She started talking about aligning energies and manifesting outcomes. One night, I overheard her telling her friend on the phone that she felt limited by traditional partnership models and burdened by domestic expectations. I was the domestic expectation, but I kept showing up, kept paying bills, kept cooking on weekends. I even helped her rehearse a thesis presentation about dismantling structural masculinity. I stood in our kitchen, reading cue cards while she practiced hand gestures and voice modulation. She won an award for it. Never mentioned my help in her thank yous. Over time, the ambition I fell for turned into something else. She stopped dreaming about changing the world and started obsessing over changing herself. New shoes, new haircuts, influencer cleanses, $300 yoga mats. Said she needed to project the image of a woman thriving in her own power. And all I saw was a woman trying to keep up with someone else's highlight reel. She talked big about launching her own brand, a blog, maybe a podcast. But she never followed through, just spent more time planning than doing. Every time I asked how it was going, she'd get defensive. "You don't get it," she said once. "You think effort is only valid if it involves sweat and a time card." I didn't respond. I'd learned not to. Eventually, her grad program ended. No job offers. She blamed capitalism, bias, and the market. Said she needed time to figure out her next move. I said fine. I took on more work to keep us afloat. At first, she used to say she was grateful, but that faded too. She started expecting it, like I was supposed to carry the load just because I was the man. And you know what? I did, because that's what I'd been raised to do. But something inside me was starting to shift. Not anger yet, just a quiet ache, like a dull splinter under the skin you can't quite reach, but it nags you every time you move. I kept telling myself things would get better. Once she figured things out, once she launched whatever vision she was chasing, we'd go back to those early days. Back when she smiled at me like I mattered. But deep down, I knew better. The woman I married was still in the apartment. But the girl I fell in love with, she was long gone. There's something humiliating about working 16-hour days and coming home to a mess you didn't make. I'm not talking about dishes or laundry, though those piled up, too. I mean the kind of mess that settles in your chest, the slow, grinding realization that the person you're building a life for isn't lifting a damn finger to help build it with you. Melissa called herself a full-time visionary now. That's what she put on her LinkedIn. Said she was in incubation mode. refining her voice and building a brand identity. Most days that looked like lounging in silk robes, drinking green juice, and brainstorming on Pinterest. Meanwhile, I was pouring sweat in a hard hat, managing job sites, negotiating with subcontractors, and filing reports in the trunk between sites with spotty Wi-Fi. When I came home, if I was lucky, there might be some takeout left on the counter. Cold, never covered. Most nights, she was already in bed, blue light glowing off her phone screen, while she scrolled through social media feeds full of polished women in perfect kitchens claiming to be self-made. She liked to talk about balance, how modern relationships should be egalitarian. But the only balance in our house was in her yoga poses, never the workload. I did the grocery runs, the budgeting, the cooking, the fixing. I paid the bills. Everyone. I even changed the damn light bulbs she said made her complexion look too sharp on video calls. I asked her once, just once, to do the laundry while I was at a site 3 towns over. I got home to the same overflowing hamper and her excuse. I was in flow all day, couldn't break it. You know how fragile momentum is. She talked about energy and chakras. I talked about deadlines and invoices. We weren't speaking the same language anymore. But what got me wasn't laziness. It was the entitlement. The way she expected comfort without contribution. The way she looked at me like I was her sponsor, not her husband. Once, after a brutal rain delay on a foundation job, I came home soaked to the bone and dog-tired. I dropped my muddy boots by the door and just stood there. She glanced up from the couch, where she was watching some reality show about influencers screaming at each other in Dubai. "You're dripping on the floor," she said. "Can you clean that up? I just had it mopped yesterday. By a cleaner. That I paid for." I stared at her. Something in my jaw tensed. Something I hadn't felt in a long time, resentment. Not anger. Not yet. Just the cold recognition that I was being used. Used and expected to smile while it happened. We hadn't been intimate in months. When I brought it up, she told me I was too aggressive, that she didn't feel emotionally aligned. Said I needed to be more in touch with my own vulnerability if I wanted to reconnect on a deeper level. Meanwhile, she posted filtered selfies in gym clothes with captions like, "Protect your peace, Queen." If he wanted to, he would. She never tagged me. I started noticing things. Packages arriving almost daily, designer boxes with names I couldn't pronounce. When I asked her about them, she waved it off. "It's networking," she said. "You wouldn't understand how brand partnerships work." Brand partnerships. We didn't even have a joint brand. One night I stayed up and added up the monthly charges on our shared card. Over $3,000 in wellness essentials, consultation sessions, and creative retreats. No income, no invoices, just withdrawals like I was an ATM with a pulse. I asked her what her plan was. Not to criticize, just to understand. She rolled her eyes. "You always need a plan. Maybe that's your problem. Not everything in life needs a schematic, Jake. But it does need effort." And I was the only one making any. I used to think I was building a life for both of us. Now I knew I was building a stage for her to perform on. And the longer I stayed silent, the more she mistook my tolerance for weakness. That's when I stopped waiting for her to change. Stopped telling myself this was just a phase. I started getting up earlier. Started doing more things for myself. Working out again. Reconnecting with old friends. Taking jobs that require overnight travel. And I noticed how she barely reacted. No texts asking when I'd be home. No calls. Just an occasional passive-aggressive comment when I walked in. "You're gone a lot lately." That's not very supportive of a partner's emotional needs. I didn't answer. Just went to shower, scrubbing the concrete dust off my skin and watching it swirl down the drain like all the promises we used to make. That was the moment I realized something simple and cold. I was married to someone who didn't love me. She loved the comfort I provided, the image I supported, the lifestyle I funded. But me, the man behind the checkbook and toolbox? She hadn't seen him in a long, long time. I got the promotion on Thursday. Regional site manager, biggest step I'd taken in my career. Came with a company truck, stock options, and a raise that finally made all the overtime and stress worth it. My boss slapped me on the back like I'd won a damn championship. "You earned this, Jake," he said. "No one works harder." I drove home that night thinking, maybe this would change things. Maybe she'd be proud. Maybe we'd go out to dinner, raise a glass, hit reset. Stupid hope, but it crept in anyway. I even stopped for flowers, peonies this time because I remembered, and a bottle of her favorite wine. I walked in smiling. Melissa was at the kitchen island, staring at her phone, face bathed in LED glow. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "I got the promotion," I said, setting the flowers down. "Regional manager. We made it." She blinked. "That's good. Did you pick up the dry cleaning?" I stood there for a second. Just stood. Thought maybe she misheard. Or maybe it hadn't registered. "No," I said. "I was at work. The meeting ran late. They gave me a truck. A whole team. This is huge." She sighed, finally setting her phone down. "You're going to be gone even more now, huh?" That's what she pulled from it. Not the title. Not the raise. Not the years of busting my ass. Just the inconvenience to her schedule. Then, before I could say a word, she launched into a monologue about a new immersive retreat she wanted to attend. Some 3-day luxury getaway for women rebranding themselves. Price tag, $1,800, not including the healing accessories. I stared at her, gripping the wine bottle like a wrench. "I just told you I got a life-changing promotion," I said slowly. "And your first response is a damn retreat?" She tilted her head. "I'm allowed to invest in myself, Jake. Everything's always about your job, your schedule, your accomplishments. What about me?" "You don't do anything," I snapped. Silence. She blinked like I'd slapped her. Then she laughed. A sharp, fake sound. "Wow, there it is." "Where is the truth? You think I'm lazy? That I don't deserve anything unless I'm breaking my back like you?" "You're damn right I think that," I said, stepping closer. "Because while I've been out there in 90-degree heat climbing scaffolds, you've been in here burning candles and playing with fonts for a blog you never launched. You think that makes you better than me? No, I think it makes me valuable. You're a dependent with a superiority complex." Her face changed. Something cold crept into her eyes. Not anger, not sadness, just calculation. "If that's how you feel," she said slowly, "maybe we should take a break." That stopped me. A break. Space. Time to breathe. Figure out who we are. I've been reading about emotional detachment and... No. What? No space. No break. You don't get to take a break from being a wife after bleeding me dry for years. You want out? Then say it. "I didn't say that," she snapped. "You just don't want to be the one who ends it," I said. "Because you want to keep playing house until something better shows up. That's who you are, Melissa." She grabbed the flowers and threw them into the sink. "You're a monster," she said. "No," I replied, voice low. "I'm a man who finally sees you for what you are." She stormed off, slamming the bedroom door. I didn't follow. I poured a glass of that wine and sat at the table, alone in a house I paid for, surrounded by furniture I built, drowning in silence that used to be filled with love, or at least the illusion of it. That was the night it died. Not with some dramatic affair or shocking betrayal, but with indifference, with her treating the best moment of my life like a scheduling inconvenience. And I finally accepted that I wasn't married to a partner. I was chained to a taker, and the chain was coming off. After that night, Melissa didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't pack a bag or threaten divorce. She just stopped speaking. The house got quieter than I'd ever known it. No more podcasts echoing from the kitchen. No half-hearted small talk. No passive-aggressive signs. Just silence. And the occasional clack of her acrylic nails on her phone screen as she lay on the couch all day. It wasn't peace. It was a punishment. She weaponized silence like a blade, sharp, cold, and surgical. But I didn't give her the reaction she was hunting for. I kept going to work. Kept doing what I'd always done. Only now I was watching. Logging patterns, noticing details, what she bought, where she went, who she messaged. Her laptop stayed open sometimes. Careless, like she'd stopped pretending I mattered. I checked the browser history, retreats, expense lists, Instagram DMs with names I didn't recognize. Miss you already from a guy named Cameron. No last name. Profile picture blurred out like he didn't want to be recognized. That was my first clue. Not the kind that hits like a sledgehammer, more like a hairline crack in concrete. But once you see it, it's all you can look at. I didn't confront her. I didn't throw her phone or demand answers. I just backed away emotionally, like a man walking out of a burning building, closing doors behind him to keep the flames contained. And while I backed away, I started planning. First thing I did was stop paying for her extras. No more online orders. No more spa appointments. I turned off the automatic reload on her Uber Eats account. She noticed by day 3, left the empty fridge door hanging open and texted me from the other room. Melissa, why is the card declining? I didn't reply. Later that day, she tried to break the silence with sarcasm. So, are we just roommates now? She asked, perched on a bar stool with her phone in hand. I didn't look up from my coffee. Roommates pay rent. That shut her up fast. She tried other angles. One morning, she came out dressed up, tight dress, full makeup, heels. Brunch with friends, she said, grabbing the keys to my car. I stood in her way. You're not insured to drive it anymore. She blinked. Excuse me? I took your name off the policy last week. You're being petty. No, I said. I'm being responsible. That word hit her harder than I expected. Responsible. She hated being reminded of what she wasn't. The thing about Melissa? She thrived on control, but only when it was unearned. She never handled being denied. Never knew what to do when someone didn't fold for her smile, her guilt trips, or her icy attitude. She started trying to bait me. Loud phone calls about how some men just don't know how to treat a powerful woman. Instagram captions like, detaching from toxic energy is an act of self-love. And outfits that screamed, look what you're missing. But I wasn't missing a damn thing. I was clearing space. In the silence, I started reclaiming pieces of myself. Small things at first. Running before work. Going out with the guys for beers without asking permission. Listening to old playlists she used to call trashy. I reconnected with my brother, spent a weekend helping him build a patio. And for the first time in years, I felt respected, appreciated. One night, I stayed late on site for a concrete pour and didn't text her. When I got home, she was waiting at the table, arms folded. Where were you? She asked. At work, I said, walking right past her. I've been sitting here for an hour. So, don't you think that's disrespectful? I looked her dead in the eye. Now you care about respect? Her jaw clenched. She didn't say another word. That was the final shift. The balance had tipped, and she felt it. She wasn't the center of my universe anymore. She was just a loud presence in a quiet house. And me? I wasn't angry, not like before. I was calm, clear, cold maybe, but in control. I didn't yell. I didn't plead. I just let her sit in the silence she created. Because when a woman like Melissa stops talking, it means she's losing power. And when a man like me stops caring, it means it's already over. I was sitting in my truck one morning, waiting on a subcontractor who was always late, when I opened our bank's online portal out of habit. I didn't expect anything out of the ordinary, just wanted to make sure the mortgage autopay hit. It did, right on time. So did 6 Uber charges, for Etsy purchases, a $247 charge at some boutique called Sacred Essence, and 2 transactions to a PayPal account I didn't recognize. Total damage for the week, $1,168. My jaw locked. That was more than our grocery budget, more than my truck payment. That was a full week of my labor, poured into scented oils and digital workshops run by people named Indigo and Sage. I scrolled back further. Last 30 days? $4,326. And it wasn't the first time. That night, after dinner, cold rotisserie chicken I picked up on the way home while she lay around detoxing. I waited until she went into the shower, Then I sat at her laptop. Password was still the same. She never thought I'd check. Email confirmations, coaching subscriptions, empowerment merchandise, a $500 prepayment to some private Zoom seminar hosted by a guy calling himself the Alpha Oracle. I stared at the screen. She wasn't building a business. She was buying a fantasy, one where she was important, powerful, deserving. All funded by the man she couldn't even bother thanking anymore. I shut the laptop and didn't sleep that night. Instead, I got to work. First thing in the morning, I scheduled a meeting with my financial advisor. Told him to help me untangle every joint account, cleanly and legally. Moved 80% of our cash into an account only I could touch. Froze the cards under her name. Transferred the mortgage to a separate draw account. Next step? Installed a spending alert system. I wanted her to feel every denied purchase like a slap. That night, she came stomping out of the bedroom with her phone in hand. "My card isn't working," she said. "Fix it." I didn't look up from my book. I did fix it. What the hell does that mean? It means I'm not funding your nonsense anymore. She blinked. Are you kidding me? You spent over $4,000 last month. Most of it is garbage you couldn't explain in a job interview. I'm building a brand. No, you're playing dress up on the internet while I break my back paying for it. Her mouth opened, but I cut her off. You think I'm abusive because I finally told you no? You want to see abuse? Try surviving on minimum wage. Try watching your wife drain your bank account for candles and spiritual coaching while she calls you toxic for asking where the money's going. You can't control me like this. I'm not controlling you, I said. I'm cutting off your access to me. There's a difference. She stood there shaking, like she couldn't believe I had the balls to speak that plainly, like she still thought the silent treatment had power. Financial abuse is real, she said, quieter now. I could. You want to make this legal? I said. Good, because I've already started the paperwork. Her face cracked, just for a second. She hadn't expected that. She'd expected a fight, a shouting match, tears, something to grab onto, to manipulate. But I didn't give her any of that. Just facts. Cold, clean, undeniable. I stood up. You want your own money? I said. Get a job, like the rest of us. Then I walked into the bedroom and shut the door behind me. She didn't follow. For the next few days, she kept trying to provoke a reaction. Left dishes in the sink. Played her videos loud at night. Even posted a cryptic Instagram story with a sad song and the caption, "Some people only love when you're useful." I didn't comment, didn't like it, didn't even bring it up, because I wasn't just walking away from her spending. I was walking away from needing her to change. She spent the next week throwing tantrums without volume, slamming drawers, calling her mom, pretending to cry when she thought I was looking. Meanwhile, I started sleeping better, eating better, lifting again, getting my edge back. One night, I sat at the kitchen table alone, sipping bourbon and reviewing my divorce checklist. Financials? Locked. Evidence? Archived. Lawyer? Meeting scheduled. I looked around the house. The spotless floors, the neatly stacked mail, the silence, and smiled for the first time in months. I wasn't losing control. I was finally reclaiming it. The first time I walked into my lawyer's office, I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. It wasn't some hot-blooded revenge mission. It wasn't about punishing Melissa. Hell, I didn't even care what she posted online anymore. I was just done being the workhorse in a one-sided marriage. Done bleeding myself dry to keep someone else comfortable while they spit in my face for not doing more. My lawyer was a bulldog named Cynthia Marks. Late 50s, sharp eyes, sharper tongue. She'd handled enough divorces to know the moment a man walked in whether he was ready to burn the house down or just looking for permission to walk away. I think she pegged me the second I sat down. "You've got your financials?" she asked. I slid over the folder. She flipped through it, impressed. Bank transfers, card statements, receipts. You came prepared. "I'm in construction," I said. "We don't swing hammers without measuring twice." She smirked. "This'll be smooth, assuming she doesn't fight dirty." I leaned back. "She won't. She doesn't know how to fight when she's not holding the leash. Cynthia raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Just laid out the roadmap, petition, asset protection, preliminary disclosures, timelines. She told me to stay cool, document everything, and speak as little as possible when it came time to serve papers. Do not gloat. Do not argue. Let the papers speak. I nodded. I'd already said everything that needed to be said. Back at the house, Melissa had slipped into this weird stage of forced politeness. After the financial cut-off, she must have sensed something bigger coming. She started playing the role again, folding laundry, lighting candles, even cooking pasta one night like it was 2016. She asked if I wanted to sit down and talk things out. I told her I had a meeting, didn't say with who. She smiled like it didn't bother her. But I saw the tension in her jaw, the way she watched me over the rim of her wine glass, like a cat circling a closed door, wondering what was on the other side. That weekend, she tried to seduce me. It was awkward, stiff, like a woman trying to reenact a scene she'd watched online. She wore a red silk robe I hadn't seen in years, ran her hands down my chest and whispered things I knew she didn't mean. I didn't flinch. I didn't respond. I just stepped back and said, "Melissa, we haven't made love in almost a year. What is this, really?" She bit her lip. "I miss us." "No," I said, calm as ever. "You miss the security. You miss being kept. You miss not having to earn anything." Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. She'd used emotion like a scalpel before. This time it was a dull blade. The next morning, she left early. Some self-care brunch or social circle drama, who knows? I took the chance to change passwords, locked down the last shared accounts, pulled the car title into my name. She never contributed a cent. I called the lawyer, gave the green light. Papers were scheduled to be served on a Tuesday morning, 9 a.m., right after her Pilates class. I didn't tell her. Instead, I got up early that day, brewed coffee, and left the house before sunrise. I didn't need to be there when the storm hit. I'd already built the levees. I drove to a site we were breaking ground on, a big custom home on 5 acres, and just stood there as the crew prepped the land, watching men work, watching something real take shape. Around 10:30, my phone buzzed. "Melissa," then again, then a text. "What the hell is this?" I didn't reply, because by then the plan wasn't just in motion. It was already over. Melissa didn't come home the night she got served. I figured she'd hole up at her friend Kira's place, the one who always posted about healing through sisterhood and had a weird obsession with full moon rituals. Fine by me. I spent the evening grilling a steak, watching a ball game, and sleeping with the bedroom door wide open for the first time in years. The silence wasn't lonely. It was clean. The next morning, she came back. Hair done, makeup perfect, wearing that faux calm expression she always used when she was preparing a speech. "You blindsided me," she said. "No," I replied. "I finally matched your energy." She didn't sit, just stood there in the doorway like she didn't know where she belonged anymore. "I thought marriage meant fighting through the hard times." I chuckled. "We haven't had a hard time. You've had a free ride." She flinched. "I was building something real," I continued. "While you were pretending to be something online." She crossed her arms. "I was lost, Jake. I got caught up in things that distracted me from us. But I can fix this. I want to fix this." I stared at her for a long time, not because I was tempted, but because it was almost impressive how fast she changed tactics. Manipulation was her real career. "You want to fix this?" I asked. "Then tell me who Cameron is." Her eyes went blank. The name hit home. "The guy who misses you already?" I said, pulling out my phone. I showed her the screenshot, DMs, deleted texts, app notifications, the Exploring Connections profile she forgot to log out of one night. She swallowed hard. "I never met him in person." "Doesn't matter. You were scouting replacements before the final whistle blew." She said nothing. "You had a husband who paid the bills, cooked half the meals, folded your laundry, and never raised his voice. And you thought that wasn't enough." Tears welled in her eyes again. For once, I didn't care. "Jake, please, I just want one more chance. I stepped back. You don't get another chance to keep draining a man who already gave you everything. She tried to reach for me. I didn't move. You don't love me, I said. You love the lifestyle I gave you, the peace I provided, the safety net. People make mistakes, she whispered. No, people make choices. You made yours the moment you looked at another man like a backup plan. She crumpled into a chair, shaking. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam doors or curse her out. I just left the house, drove to the storage unit I'd been quietly renting, picked up the boxes I packed weeks ago, clothes, tools, photo albums she'd forgotten we owned. The rest could rot with the moldy dreams she never lifted a finger to pursue. That evening, I dropped the keys on the kitchen counter. I'll be out by morning, I said. She didn't speak, didn't look up. I looked around the place one last time, the walls I painted, the floors I cleaned, the life I tried to build. Then I walked out, one box under my arm, and didn't look back. Freedom doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes it comes in the quiet of a man reclaiming his space and letting the past sit alone in the dark, wondering why it can't reach him anymore. 6 months later, I barely recognized the man in the mirror. My hands still had calluses, but they were mine again, not reminders of what I gave away, but proof of what I rebuilt. My mornings started early, coffee black, workout at the local gym, then off to work where I managed 3 crews, 5 sites, and a team that respected the hell out of me. I earned that. No one gave it to me, especially not her. I'd rented a small house just outside town, nothing fancy, but the kind of place where you could hear the wind through the trees at night and wake up to birds instead of drama. I planted a raised garden bed on the side, even though I'd never cared much for tomatoes. It wasn't about vegetables. It was about putting something in the ground and watching it grow. I started sleeping better, laughing more. The silence I used to dread had become something else. Peace. No walking on eggshells. No passive-aggressive lectures about how my ambition was performative masculinity. Just clean countertops, cold beer, and a damn good recliner I bought with my own money. Melissa tried reaching out twice. First time, it was a text. I've been thinking a lot. I realize now how much you did for us. I didn't respond. Second time, she left a voicemail. Her voice was softer, almost shaky. I just miss your presence, she said. Your stability. I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner. She still didn't tell me. She missed the presence, the stability, the safety, the benefits of me, not the man who built them. I deleted the message and blocked her number. Some bridges don't need to be burned, just left to rot. Friends started noticing the difference. Even my brother, who used to avoid visiting because he couldn't stand Melissa's condescending tone, stopped by more often. You look lighter, he said one night over beers. Like you finally dropped 100 pounds you didn't know you were carrying. I laughed. Try 125. All in designer heels. We clicked bottles. I wasn't looking for another relationship. Not yet. But I wasn't bitter. I wasn't closed off. I just knew better now. Knew the value of peace over company, of effort over charm, of truth over theatrics. There was one woman I'd met a few weeks back, Cassie. She worked at the hardware store I'd been going to since college. Sharp tongue, dirt under her nails, laughed from the chest. She didn't play games. When she said she'd be there, she showed up 5 minutes early with coffee. We talked sometimes. About dogs, about bad bosses, about building things that lasted. She wasn't a fantasy. She was real. And that was enough for now. One Saturday afternoon, I sat on my back porch, watching the clouds shift and the wind bend the grass. I had a cold beer in my hand, country music on the radio, and no one texting me to complain about my energy. I thought back to who I used to be, the man who ignored red flags, who kept giving because he thought that's what made a man worthy. Now I knew better. Being a man wasn't about bleeding for someone who never offered a Band-Aid. It was about knowing your value and refusing to let anyone discount it. So yeah, maybe I lost a marriage, but I gained something better. My damn self.